My name is Lena. I'm 34, and for the past few months, I've been carrying around this heavy ache in my chest that I can't quite shake. It's like a secret I'm afraid to say out loud, but that whispers to me every time I'm alone. It's eating me up from the inside, and maybe telling you will help me make sense of it. I told him to treat all the kids fairly, and he just said, "They're not mine," then stopped responding to my texts. That line, that refusal to even try, it cracked something between us. But it didn't start there. Not really. When we first got together, everything felt electric. I could still remember the way his hands fit perfectly around my waist, how his lips traced my skin like he was memorizing every inch of me. Our nights were a tangled mix of laughter and whispered promises, the kind that made me feel seen, wanted, alive. He made me feel safe and sexy all at once, like I was the only person who mattered in his world. But those moments became fewer, like drops of water evaporating on a hot sidewalk. The kisses that once sparked fireworks started feeling mechanical, like a routine he wanted over with. When I reached for him in bed, his body stiffened, retreating just enough to remind me I was reaching for someone who was already slipping away. Cuddling on the couch turned cold, his arms a cage, not a refuge. A hug stopped feeling like an embrace, and more like a silent demand. Keep this together. I felt myself shrinking, becoming smaller in a space that used to be ours. I wanted to pull him close, but he pulled away. I craved connection, but he created distance. The exact moment I realized something had changed, really changed, was one quiet Sunday afternoon. I was trying to get him to join the kids and me in the backyard. I told him, softly, they deserve to be treated equally. His eyes hardened, and he said, almost dismissively, "They're not mine." Then he turned his back and stopped answering my messages altogether. That was the fracture, a refusal not just to share responsibility, but to share the heart. And now? I'm left wondering if the man I fell in love with ever really saw all of us at all. He's a firefighter. Brave and steady in a way that always made me think he had a strength no emergency could shake. But strength doesn't always mean knowing how to hold someone the right way. One evening, after a long shift, he came home tired but smiling like he'd saved the world, or at least some part of it. I was sitting at the kitchen table, trying to keep the peace between the kids who were winding down for bed. The house was full of noise, but I wanted just a moment of quiet with him. Without much warning, he stepped behind me and wrapped his arms around my shoulders. His hands were rough, calloused from days spent gripping hoses and ladders. It should have been comforting, but instead, I felt it like a weight pressing down, too hard, too fast, like he was trying to fix something that didn't have a quick solution. I leaned into him, hoping to close the distance between us, but the tension was thick. His touch was physical, but I was craving something more, a conversation, a look that said he understood the invisible battles I was fighting. I wanted him to ask how I was, really. To meet my eyes and say, "I'm here. We're in this together." Instead, he just held on, like if he tightened enough, I wouldn't slip away. That's the hard part. He shows love through action, a kiss on the forehead, a hand on my back, those quiet, steady touches that mean I'm here. But I need emotional intimacy first. I need to feel seen beyond the surface. I tried to tell him once, but the words got tangled up in the fear of pushing him away. "I feel like you don't see me," I said quietly one night, "like you're here, but not really." He looked confused, maybe even frustrated, like I was asking for something he didn't know how to give. "I'm trying," he said. "Isn't this enough?" It wasn't. Not for me. The kids were still learning who he was. He was their stepdad in name, but sometimes felt like a stranger in our family's chaos. And that night, in that tight, rough embrace, I realized that love without understanding was like a fire without oxygen, all heat but no life. He came up behind me again that evening, his familiar warmth settling over my shoulders like a habit I should have welcomed by now. He reached out, his hand sliding lightly down my arm, and I felt the ghost of a smile tug at his lips before he leaned in to kiss my neck. I wanted to lean into him, to melt into that moment like I used to, but instead, I stiffened. His hand found my waist, gave a quick, playful slap, the kind that used to make me laugh, remind me of the spark we shared. But this time, it felt like a stranger's touch. Sharp and unwelcome. He pulled me closer, eyes hopeful, lips brushing against mine, but when we kissed, it was empty. My mind raced, dissecting every second. Was I cold? Was it him? Was it us? I wanted to want this, to feel that electric connection again. Instead, I felt numb. He pulled back slightly, searching my face. "Hey," he said softly, "what's wrong?" I shrugged, unable to find words that wouldn't hurt him or sound like I was blaming him. "Nothing," I whispered, but inside I was screaming. Why does everything have to turn into sex? I thought bitterly. Why can't we just be close without it feeling like a transaction or an obligation? I craved closeness, not pressure. I wanted him to hold me because he wanted me, not just because it was the way we said, "I love you" now. I wanted to tell him I was scared of losing what we had, scared that the distance wasn't just between our bodies, but between our hearts. But the words stuck in my throat. So I just let him hold me, even though inside I was drifting farther away. It was supposed to be a quiet dinner, just the two of us after the kids were asleep. I had cooked his favorite meal, something simple, comforting, hoping maybe, just maybe, we could find a thread of connection in the space between us. But the moment felt fragile, like walking on thin ice. He glanced at his phone again, then back at me. "I told you, I don't want to get involved with all the kids the same way," he said, voice low but firm. "They're not mine." Why is that so hard for you to accept? Something inside me snapped. I pushed my plate aside, my hands trembling. It's not just about the kids. I burst out, tears spilling over before I could stop them. It's about us, about how you don't even try to be here with me anymore. How you shut me out, how you don't see me, how I'm invisible. He stared at me, blinking like he wasn't sure what to say. For a second, there was just silence. Then, his jaw tightened, and he looked away. "I'm tired," he finally said, voice flat. "Maybe we're just too different." The words hit me like a slap, colder than any touch. I wanted to explain, to say that love isn't just biology or bloodlines, it's effort, it's presence. But instead, I sat there, my chest heavy with guilt and confusion, wondering if I'd become too much, too desperate. Later, alone in the dark, I questioned everything. Was I wrong to ask for fairness? Was I wrong to want him to love all of us equally? I felt ashamed for losing control, for letting my frustrations spill out like that. But most of all, I felt lost, stuck between wanting to fight for us and fearing that maybe some things can't be fixed. The days after that night stretched out like a gray fog between us. The house felt quieter, colder, not the kind of silence that's peaceful, but the heavy kind that presses down on your chest. I found myself watching him more than talking to him, tracing the way his shoulders slumped after a long day, the way his eyes lost their spark when he thought I wasn't looking. He barely spoke, and when he did, his words were clipped, weighed down by something I couldn't quite reach. I saw the exhaustion behind his tired smile, the same exhaustion I felt. Maybe he was hurting too, just in a different way. Not a villain, not uncaring. Just broken like me. I missed him. I missed the man who used to kiss me like he needed me, who held me close even in the chaos. But every time I thought about reaching out, the silence between us grew louder, louder than my own voice. Some nights, I caught myself overthinking every glance, every touch that didn't come. The guilt tangled with the longing, like I was both the cause of the distance and the one desperate to close it. One evening, I sat alone in the living room, the weight of everything settling deep in my chest. I had to make a choice, keep fighting for something that felt like slipping sand through my fingers, or finally let go and find myself again. I didn't have the answer yet. But I knew I couldn't keep pretending that the man beside me and the man I loved were one and the same, not without trying, and not without risking the heartbreak that might come with it. One night, weeks after the silence had stretched too long, he finally broke it. We sat at the edge of the bed, the only light coming from the street lamp outside casting soft shadows across his face. He looked tired, worn down by things he didn't say aloud, but there was something in his eyes I hadn't seen in a while, a flicker of openness. "I've been avoiding this," he said quietly. "Not because I don't care, but because I didn't know how to say it right. About the kids, about us." I nodded, my throat tight. "Me too. I wanted fairness, but maybe I was asking for more than you could give." He reached out, brushing my hair behind my ear with a gentle touch. It wasn't a grand gesture, no promises or declarations, but it was enough. Enough to remind me that beneath the walls we'd built, there was still something real. "I'm willing to try," he whispered. "But we have to be honest. About what we want. What we can handle." I leaned into him, feeling the weight of all the distance melt just a little. His arms wrapped around me, a silent hug that said, "I'm here." No words, no pressure. And in that moment, I realized healing wouldn't be fast or easy. It would be slow and fragile, but maybe that was enough. Because sometimes, love isn't about grand gestures. It's about the quiet moments where two people choose to keep trying, even when it's hard. So here I am, still figuring it out, still learning what it means to love someone when love feels messy, complicated, and sometimes painfully imperfect. Maybe fairness isn't just about the kids or the roles we play. Maybe it's about seeing each other, really seeing each other, even when it's hard. I don't have all the answers. I'm scared, and sometimes I still feel that ache of being unseen. But I'm holding on to the small hope that love can grow in the cracks if we're brave enough to let it. And if you're listening to this, maybe you're holding on to hope, too. Maybe you're standing in the middle of your own complicated love story, wondering if it's worth the fight. I guess all I can say is this: sometimes it is. Sometimes trying, even when it hurts, is how we find our way back. 7.